So, foil drives, Chris.
Finger blasters.
We're now sort of probably 8 months into release. So yeah, unless you've been living under a massive rock, you will have seen probably one of these around. So we're going to do a bit of a sort of long-term sort of test on it, you know, long-term feedback. The phrase game changer is bandied around a lot in this industry, but it's fair to say this is one. And it's got people as excited as they are scared, I'd say.
I mean, I very much sat on the fence of this as a product when I've seen it coming out.
Yeah.
And you've given us the opportunity now to try it out, and it's really nice to now jump in for a conversation about what it is as a product and what it means for the sport, because you've had a lot of time on it now, right?
Yeah, so I've used this very regularly. I wasn't really sure initially how I was going to weave it into my routine between kind of SUP foil and winging primarily. But it definitely fills a little void there where I normally wouldn't have gone out because the conditions were too poor.
Yeah.
I guess we should explain briefly, although there's a million videos like this on the internet, what we're talking about here. It's essentially a lithium battery pack that sits there underneath the mast. So the weight distribution's really good for the board. It's not like lopsided, it's perfectly centered underneath you. And then you have a little propeller which gives you bags of thrust, like enough thrust to flat water start in most scenarios, and you have a little trigger which you squeeze which makes that go round, and a throttle. It's really simple.
It's different models, right? You choose at purchase, is that right?
Yeah, you do. So basically there's a max model, which is this one, which is this big kind of 50mm number, and then there's a slim model which is probably 2/3 the size. So basically you buy it depending on how much thrust you think you need. So me at 90 kilos, I was always going to have the max one. If you are 70 kilos-ish, maybe you'd go for the slim one because you don't need all that power. There's also various different battery sizes, which again are very well covered on their site.
Which is ultimately two different lengths, which slot in the same, but you purchase and they come with a different housing.
Exactly. So you have different shaped nose cones. The nose cone goes over the front of the battery, and the whole thing just slots straight in there. So as soon as it's in like that, it's live. And we can do like a little dry test here. You literally just turn the throttle on. There she goes. It's that simple, really, really simple. And
the difference between the batteries is as simple as the bigger battery gives you more run time, but you've got more weight to contend with.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So my primary usage for this has been prone. So that was the kind of missing kind of link in my skill set, if you like. I've never really surfed, so I've done a lot of SUP foiling, but surfing's never really been on my agenda. And this has made me lie down and pop up about probably 2,000 or 3,000 times in the last 9 months. And it's really improved my pop up, and it's really improved just my general foiling skills, I'd say.
Yeah, and board-wise, you jumped in. This is your go-to board. In terms of choosing the right board to get started on it, does it matter?
I think to start with, if you've got like a wing board kicking around that's a bit higher volume. So for me, I started on something around 80 litres, just to kind of get the measure of the thing and get used to the throttle control and popping up. And then very, very quickly, I realised I wanted something more compact. So at 90 kilos, I've gone down to something that's 411 by about, I think it's 19.5. And the key thing is that there's a million different boards you can put on it with different effects, but you really want some flat rocker in the back and just a decent planing surface and not too complex a bottom shape.
Got it.
Because it's a very different dynamic to a wingboard or a prone board. The thrust's coming from a different place. So you basically just want the thing to plane, and this little board here is just like starting off on a boogie board, and then once it's up, it's ultra compact. This one as well, like it's worth saying, some of the carbon boards, there's not brilliant signal, and they've now released an aerial to kind of work around that. But this board's, I think it's a mixture of Integra and it's PU and glass, and it has absolutely perfect signal like the whole time.
And that's definitely a consideration, right?
Yeah.
I hear that quite a lot in what's the connection like with foil drive when people are selecting a board.
Yeah.
And so effectively carbon boards are causing a problem.
It's mainly when they have a carbon track, and there's some carbon boards are absolutely fine, but some carbon boards are more flaky, but it's generally when there's a track that's made out of forged carbon, like some of the Armstrong stuff. But now there is a very good workaround with a little aerial that you can loop around.
Got it.
And then you've got full signal all the time. This PU one, I can actually duck dive and have thrust underwater, which is quite entertaining. Amazing. It's pretty cool. It's not like I keep it close on the nose there, underneath it goes.
And then gear selection, I guess the mast length, using the same size mast?
To start with, thinking it's more of a prone discipline, I used the 795 Armstrong mast, which was good to start with, but it's slightly too short because, of course, you lose essentially, the 15 to 20 centimetres or however long your cord length is here, which is another thing you select at purchase. So I've settled on the 865mm mast just because that gives you kind of enough kind of flexibility in the pitch to carve a really nice turn without dipping the pod. I
found it was really weird. So you took me for a session on this, tried this whole thing out. And I think obviously learning to get up was the first challenge.
Yeah.
But then when you then are up and you're on the board, learning to judge that distance, because as the pod drags, you really notice it.
Yeah, it makes you extremely delicate and precise with your pitch control. And that transfers over into all your other sort of foiling sports. So now when I go surffoiling, I'm riding higher all the time because I know where that point is, and it makes you ride faster and better, I think.
It took quite a lot of getting used to.
You're meant to ride high in a foil, it's more efficient.
Yeah.
But so it's improved almost every facet of my foiling.
So potentially going up a mast size gives you a bit of room to work with to figure that out?
Exactly, you've just got more room for error there. I mean, a 795 would be somewhere down here, and that essentially is like riding a 50 centimetre mast there, so that's a bit too short.
Got it, yeah.
But different depths of water and what have you. I mean, I've very much focused on using this prone with waves. You can use it with winging to get yourself up in super light wind. You could definitely use it, I mean, there's a brilliant application for downwinding. Because if you live in an onshore location particularly, you could just truck yourself offshore for a couple of miles, turn around, paddle up and then come back. And you've got the contingency as well if you've come off foil to boost yourself back up again.
So long as you save some juice.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all very, the controller's got all the information on it the whole time, and it's super simple to read. It's generally a very robust system as well. What I'd say is I've rolled this in probably overhead and a half waves, expected something to happen, and it's been completely faultless for 8 months. So that's extremely impressive.
Really robust. Does it take a lot of care? What are you finding to look after it?
So, I mean, you need to keep an eye on the bolts that hold the prop on. Sometimes, basically, any threaded fixing, you've just got to keep an eye on. It's like anything. I lubricate, this comes off the stator, and then you lubricate this section and keep this nice and dry in between uses. And there's almost no wear on this, and it's a very silty environment I'm in. When you put this back on, you don't want to crush the bearing, because obviously the magnet sucks it back on, so you just gently let that back in there. But yeah, generally it's just all the threaded fixings. You want to rinse it down afterwards, look after it. Electricity and water is never a brilliant combination. But the lanolin spray keeps everything moving. Sometimes I use a little bit of silicone on the props just to keep them flapping out nicely.
It's really well designed. It's a really impressive piece of kit, and you can't help but look at it and think they've put a lot of time and a lot of work into developing something which is here to stay.
Yeah. There's also more functionality built into it with an app as well. So you can basically pop up an app and set your latency, so how quickly the controller disconnects and turns the prop off. And you can also throttle all your thrust in there. So if you're a big guy, you can turn it all up to 11.
Right.
But if you're smaller or training someone small with it, you can throttle it all down. So it's brilliant. They thought of everything with this. And the whole package in the box is ridiculous. Everything's there, all the tools. Bar some electrical tape, that's everything.
It almost feels like they know that this is opened opened the door to what is something which is game changing to the industry.
Yeah.
And they've got it right, because they know there's competition coming around the corner. There's going to be some Chinese copies, some other brands are going to bring out their answer to it.
Yeah.
But they're in, and they've done it bloody well from the beginning.
They really have. What they've done is invented a discipline, and I think that commands a lot of respect.
So when you stuck us on a setup, you put us on a really big foil, but then I see back home a lot of guys using little foils, tearing up waves. What would you recommend as a setup?
So when I put you on it, Chris, I think I stuck you on the 1180, because that's the biggest Armstrong foil I could find kicking around, and I know you're a capable foiler. So just to dial it in, like a little bit of volume's helpful, and a big spanny foil, just because you're fighting the thrust a little bit and just getting everything together when you pop up. And the pop-up's a different technique to prone, as you found out, so you've got to just let it build speed a little bit. You know, maybe hover on your knees a little bit more than you would prone, and then up you go.
Yeah.
But yeah,
like, and some lift helps ultimately at the beginning, yeah?
Yeah, so just, like any foiling sport, start a bit bigger, be generous with volume, be generous with foil size, tail, and even fuselage length, just to dial it in. And then you can shrink it as small as you want. Yeah. So I've happily gone down to the 780 and 880 on the Armstrong system. With the 880, I can still get a flat water start with it. And then with the 780, I'll need a little shove from a wave. Mm-hmm. So, and that's actually a really nice technique where you just, it's like a chip in essentially, but an assisted chip in, and then you'll bear off and then foil out to the next wave.
Great, yeah, kicking in. Yeah. And that's its usage, right? It's effectively an e-foil, it's a powered foil, but the beauty with this system is that then you can power out like it's an e-foil, lift up a little bit higher on the pod, and then you're running a surf foil or a glidey foil.
Exactly. It's probably as significant as when they invented the ski lift, is what I'd say. So you chip in with it nice and low, you can motor around with the board low, which takes a little bit of technique, and then you can spot that set wave on the horizon and truck straight over to it and ride it all day long.
Yeah.
You get a disgusting amount of waves with this thing, and more foil time than you can ever imagine. There's often sessions I'll go out and clock 10Ks on foil, probably 50% of that at least on a wave. You can see from the GPS tracks, and that foil time just improves your the way you can feel the limits of the foil immeasurably.
Yeah, and I can see that we've spoke about this loads, and I guess that foil time is how you've talked about it as being an upskill tool.
Yeah.
You're getting foil time, you're getting to know your kit, you're getting a wave reading, and you're just getting to line it up with so much more time.
Over and over and over again.
So on that then, we should talk about responsible usage. Because this sort of products came out, and it's because of that upskilling and the ability for somebody to put themselves out the back on a foil without having climbed the ladder over months or years.
You've kind of skipped the skill acquisition of paddling in, and that's a lot of prone foiling, let's say. So I think the thing to say about it is you need to use it a long way from anyone else. You've got the ability not to require to be anywhere near a surf break, really.
Yeah.
Where I've been using it primarily as extremely remote spots that I've looked at for years that have always looked a bit too crap to bother paddling to. And you can just milk that all day long on your own, and that's the scenario for it. You don't want to take it near people, or you're just going to irritate them.
And I think really important, and not just irritate them, but risks bigger problems to the foiling sport as a collective.
This is it. There's not generally a differentiation at the moment, particularly like the lifeguards, whatever. They'll look at one of these and just say, oh, it's a foil, and you don't want to bracket everyone in an assist category. And it may lead to restrictions. So responsible usage at all time, and be courteous. And
it's a different vibe, but it's definitely something which I'd want to make people aware, and then they're buying this tool, is that it's a different discipline, it's a different sport.
Yeah.
It so therefore should be treated accordingly, and not everybody wants to be sitting in a quiet lineup.
Yeah.
With one of these.
It does buzz past. It makes when the prop cavitates, it makes quite an annoying noise. If that was me having a nice surf at sunset, I'd be cross.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So I figured the decision to get one of these incredible pieces of kit comes with the decision that then you're going to be exploring and searching for these different locations, right?
Exactly, because there's no necessity to be near anyone else with it. That's the joy of it. And that's the joy of a lot of the sports I do. I don't like to necessarily be in a pack
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I don't surf. So, yeah.
So in summary, Rich, what is it, the foil drive?
It is a fantastic learning tool that needs to be used really responsibly. It's extremely robust, it's extremely versatile, and I think it's invented a whole new discipline. It's a brilliant bit of kit, and I look forward to continue using it.
The foil drive.
The foil drive, the game changer.
Check it out.